It was the classic mistake of letting myself get driven by the never-ending to-do list. So there's more things to do, so I would sacrifice sleep to try to get more things off of the to-do list. I would skip meals. I was in that emotional yo-yo. We all talk about what we value in life: faith, family, my friends, finances. And yet if you look at people's calendars, you can truly see what they value by how they're investing their time.
Top leaders, meaningful conversation, actionable advice, bulldoze complacency, ignite inspiration, create impact. Produced by Southwestern family of companies. This is the Action Catalyst.
There are writers, and then there are great writers. And you are about to hear from one of the great writers of our day, I think, Kevin Kruse. And he's the author of 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. So, Kevin, thanks for being here.
And I'm really looking forward to it. This will be fun.
Traditionally, you've been more in like the workplace culture space and the leadership space. Why a book on time management, and why now? Like, what caused this?
I'm getting that question a lot because it is a different subject matter for me, or from what people know me for. And this was really a passion project because I saw myself the impact of adopting some of these extreme productivity habits. It had a tremendous impact on both my business life, but also my personal life. And, to put it plainly, I mean, when I'm, like say, a reformed serial entrepreneur, and when I was young and dumb in my 20s and starting my first businesses, it wasn't really my fault. I mean, I was kind of lied to. I believed that it was all about hustle. So I would just outwork everybody. And in my very first company, I mean, I literally was living secretly in my one-room office, sleeping under the desk, and waking up in the morning, showering at the YMCA, coming back to the office to put in another, 18-hour day. And I did that for a year, and that business crashed and burned. It showed that it isn't just about working hard, working every available hour. And the next business did a little better, but didn't do great. And it was the classic mistake of letting myself get driven by the never-ending to-do list. So there's more things to do, so I would sacrifice sleep to try to get more things off of the to-do list. I would skip meals to get more things done off the to-do list. I was in that horrible emotional yo-yo of working late in the office and feeling guilty that I wasn't spending time with the wife and kids, feeling stressed that you're not working on the to-do list. So, I mean, I came from a horrible place of just not understanding how all this stuff works.
And I want to talk about the to-do list thing.
This is what gets me more, hate mail and trolls, because people are so attached to their to-do list. And for the research, this book, I didn't just want it to be my own experiences. I reached out and I interviewed 7 billionaires, Olympic athletes. I even interviewed a whole bunch of straight-A students from Ivy League universities, always with the question, give me your number one piece of advice for productivity. Tell me your secret to time management. Very open-ended. And nobody said, hey, write down a to-do list and create A1, A2, B1, B2. To-do list, that's old school technology. The legend is that, Ivy League kind of invented the to-do list over 100 years ago, teaching Charles Schwab and the U.S. Steel executives how to run their day. And, back then, in a slower time, when organizations had tons of executives and middle managers and, secretaries, they were called secretaries back then, that approach probably worked. And for people who, I'm not saying this in a negative way, but people who have average responsibilities or an average career, it can still work today. None of these ultra-productive people I interviewed talked about a to-do list. What they're using instead of a to-do list is their calendar. And it's a subtle difference, but a powerful difference. They're still writing down, getting it out of their brain, kind of capturing it into a notebook or somewhere else. Oh, I've got to do this thing, but they're immediately scheduling it on their calendar. Because a to-do list, as you know, it doesn't have the duration of items on it, so we tend to do the things that are fast. It doesn't have any weighted properties to it, so we do the things that, unfortunately are the urgent things instead of the important things. And I think the to-do list really is contributing to our overall stress levels. We're all running around so overworked and overwhelmed. The psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect. When our brain knows that there's stuff that we need to take care of, but there's no plan attached, I think it's both conscious and unconscious, we're stewing on that. We're stressing about it. That's why we go home and it's late at night. I mean, we're so tired, but we're still wired and we can't fall asleep. So once it's on a calendar, you just move that to-do list, take all those items and schedule it. When it gets scheduled, it gets done. And this is what the calendar key was, one of the first things I just heard it. I mean, we went through and coded, 300 responses from, these highly successful people. You get, Chris Ducker saying, I simply put everything on my schedule. That's the secret. 30 minutes for social media, 45 minutes for email, 30 minutes for quiet time. Dave Kirpin of Likeable Media, he says, I schedule out every 15 minutes of my day. Shannon Miller, Olympic gymnast, won a bazillion medals. She says, every minute of my day is scheduled. So that's the recurring theme. It's throw away the to-do list and live from your calendar. We all talk about what we value in life. You ask anybody, oh yeah, I value, my faith and my family, my friends, my finances. And yet if you look at people's calendars, you can truly see what they value by how they're investing their time. And most people, like I was, young and dumb, my calendar, I would have answered, oh, all those things are important to me. You look at it, and I'm spending 120 hours a week just on my startup, just on my career. And that's not a balanced way, and it's not a way to be successful in your career either.
You want to know what someone really believes in, look at their calendar and their checkbook.
Oh, I love that. Yep.
Those are the two things. So one of the people that I know you got to spend some time with was Mark Cuban. I think everybody wants to know what was Cuban like. What was his thing?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of great people in the book, but Cuban's the most famous these days. Everyone's always asking that question. And the interesting thing is, just to set it up, so there were 7 billionaires I interviewed for the book, and 3 of the 7, again, it's an open-ended question. Tell me anything that's a key to productivity for you. 3 of the 7, their advice had to do with meeting time. So Mark, in his typical, kind of funny, snarky fashion, he says, never do meetings unless someone is writing you a check. So, you can assume that's a little facetious. I'm sure he has one-on-ones with his colleagues, but he's basically saying, meetings are death. Unless there's money transferring, don't do them. One of the, early co-founders of Facebook, his new company is Asana, Dustin Moskovitz, he says that meetings, again, are lethal, and they've established no meeting Wednesdays. So every Wednesday, that's a creative day. That's a maker day. That's a do-it day. That's not a meeting day. A friend of mine runs Aria Healthcare, which is a hospital chain up here near Philadelphia. She has no meeting Fridays. I mean, it's literally becoming so bad in organizations that great leaders are saying, listen, we're going to just ban those suckers. First of all, people think it's a 1-hour meeting. Well, no, if there's 10 people in the room, first of all, it's a 10-hour meeting. It's not a 1-hour meeting.
Yeah.
And then it's at the very least the cost of, salaries and benefits. But the bigger cost is the value that those people are providing. Taking a salesperson away from prospecting and into a meeting for, something that's not as important.
Let's talk about email for just a second.
Yeah, meetings and email are the big complaints, the big problems. And the first thing that people identified or shared when it came to email is, they're not leaving their email window open all day long. They shut off those message notifications so they're not getting buzzed or dinged every time there's an inbound email. And, I've summarized it as a system I call 3210. And for me, and everybody can adjust this, but I've seen this work wonders. 3 stands for check your email 3 times a day or process your email 3 times a day. There's obviously, again, productivity ninjas that say, look, do it once a day. Just check it once a day, and that's fine. And, the Tim Ferriss followers will have that auto responder go out all the time. This day and age, I want to be responsive. I move fast. So for me, it's like morning, noon, and night. I'm going to check it. I'm going to process it 3 times a day. The 2-1 stands for 21 minutes. So when I am processing my email, it's kind of like a Pomodoro. I'm setting 21 minutes on that clock, and it's ticking down. And my goal is to get back to email inbox 0 by the time that ticks to 0. And 21 minutes is not a lot of time, and it sounds almost silly or corny. Like, yeah, what's that going to do? It is amazing when you've got that countdown clock. It's almost like a game, and you just pound down that list, and you're always going through those, the 4 Ds of like, can I delete it? Boom, yes. If not, can I delegate it? Can I delegate this? Just forward it to somebody. Can I do it? Do it right now. Touch it once within a few minutes. Great. If not, then you want to defer it, which means schedule it. Don't leave it in your inbox to just sit there gathering dust. God forbid, don't add it to the bottom of your to-do list. Click that little button that in Google Mail and Gmail, it's the more button, and then you can turn your email into an event. So if you can't delete it, delegate it, do it right now, then schedule time for it right then and there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it sounds corny. It's worked for me, and I'm just getting great feedback from people who have adopted this system. And for some, maybe they're going to check it twice a day. Others, maybe it's 4 times a day. Maybe it should be 25 minutes for you instead of 21 minutes for me. 3210 is just an easy way for me to remember the system.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about the Harvard experiment thing. What was that all about?
So as reported in Harvard Business Review, these 2 researchers went into companies, started watching what executives, middle managers were doing, primarily white-collar workers, and they realized that they had much more control over their tasks than the individual workers thought. So they taught them to look every morning, to look at their to-do list or their calendar and ask 3 questions around drop, delegate, or redesign. So for drop, they were trained to ask, how valuable is this task? What would happen if I dropped it? For delegate, you ask, am I the only person who can do this task? Who else might be able to do it? Mm-hmm. And redesign says, how can I achieve roughly the same outcome, but in less time? Or, what would I do if I only had half the available time to try to get this thing done? Just by training people to ask those 3 questions, on average, people were able to save 6 hours of desk work each week and 2 hours of meeting time. Can you just drop them completely? Can you delegate things? It is so powerful. And people will say, I don't have team members reporting to me. I can't delegate anything. Delegating to me is just another form of outsourcing. So right. Whether it's you're a solopreneur and you're hiring a VA, you're a stay-at-home parent and have decided to hire the teenager to mow your lawn, these are powerful tools. So drop, delegate, redesign ended up, on average, saving 8 hours of time each week. Long before this book, was even an idea, I had a mentor who was one of the ones who started to teach me the right way to think about time and productivity. He went on, he's an entrepreneur, he ended up selling his last company to IBM for $1.3 billion. And this guy, he was never frazzled. He walked slowly. He had time for everybody. When he was with you, he was fully present. And one of the pieces of advice he gave me is that when I look at all the things I'm supposed to get done, he said, most people look and say, how can I get this thing done? Or how can I get it done in less time? He says, I take the I out of it. He says, how can this thing get done? And he says, as soon as you talk about, it's not about, it's just the result. How can I get this result? Or how can this result occur? How can this result happen? And take yourself even out of it. It opens up a whole bunch of new possibilities.
Okay, so we're running out of time. So this last question, procrastination is kind of the enemy of self-discipline. You talk about your idea for the cure to procrastination is time traveling to defeat your future self.
The time travel trick is a tool that we can use when we're finding that we're procrastinating on the significant items, whether that be eating healthy meals or working out or, moving that big rock at work that's going to really be the thing that's going to lead to our revenue breakthrough. So this is a strategy that we can deploy to overcome the negative kinds of procrastination. And it's like this. The psychologists talk about, we have this time dissonance where we're always discounting our future selves. And, it's a silly example, but let's say, I'm always, struggling with health and healthy habits. And, every Sunday I go to the grocery store and I say, this is the week I'm going to get on the wagon. I'm going to eat really healthy. I'm going to drop a couple pounds. And I spend all my time in the produce aisle buying lettuce and carrots and tomatoes. So I'm going to be eating salads every night for dinner. That's the plan. But the problem is the future version of Kevin that actually arrives. He's going to sabotage my best interest. He's going to fight against the Sunday version of Kevin. So when Wednesday night shows up and it's 7:00 and I stumble into the kitchen and I'm hungry and tired and, my willpower has been depleted, I'm going to say, what's for dinner? I'm going to open up that fridge. I'm going to see the now wilting lettuce because I haven't had any salads all week. And I'll remember, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be eating a salad. And then you start, rationalizing, right? It takes so long to make, at least 5 minutes to make a salad.
Yeah.
It's cold. I deserve something better. I know I'll microwave this 1 minute frozen burrito because it's so salty and fatty and cheesy. It's going to be delicious. That future Kevin, that future self sabotages our best interest. And whether it's, hey, I'm going to work out this afternoon. I'm going to put 2 hours into the gym later this afternoon. And then, of course, later this afternoon, that version of Kevin decides not to. So we have to think about all the ways we're going to sabotage ourselves and then come up with strategies now in the present to defeat that. And this is an extreme example and kind of funny. I have a friend, she likes to eat healthy. And once we were out at a restaurant and she said, hey, give me a turkey burger with no bun and a set of fries, give me a salad. Okay, that's fine. They bring it over and they forgot to, put the salad down. It was French fries. Now she could have sent it back or something, but instead she opens up the salt shaker, takes the lid off, and dumps the entire salt shaker on top of the fries. Like, what are you doing? And she said, oh, I know that in 3 minutes, her future self, in 3 minutes, I'm going to try to eat just one fry because one fry is not going to hurt me. But then I know in 5 minutes, I'm going to say, well, I'll just eat 2 more. And then in 10 minutes, I'm going to eat all the fries. So I'm going to defeat the 3 minute from now version of myself by destroying all the fries, by covering them up with all this salt. And a less extreme example is, look, if I say I'm going to work out in the afternoon or at night, I know all the tricks that the future version of Kevin's going to do. So instead, I set my alarm early in the morning. I put the alarm on the other side of the room so I can't snooze it. I got to get out of bed. And when I get out of bed, I'm stepping on my workout clothes and sneakers. First thing I do is do my workout. Even if I try to tell myself, oh, I got a little scratchy throat, I might be getting a cold, I better go back to bed. Sleep's important too, No, I'm going to say, look, even if you're not going to work out today, just get on the treadmill and walk for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. You could always walk for 5 minutes. And then as you know, once you're on for 5 minutes, all right, I'll go another 5. I'll crank it up a couple more miles per hour. So whatever the area is that we're struggling, whether it's writing that book we want to write, losing that weight, banging out those 50 cold calls, we just need to think about all the ways we're going to jeopardize ourselves in the future and come up with ways to combat those right now.
I love it. So Kevin Kruse, Kevin, thanks for what you're doing, man. We appreciate you.
Appreciate the opportunity to share.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. And to stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast and on Twitter at Catalyst_Action. And thanks for listening.